So today we're going to be talking about Mario because there is a lot of Mario to talk about. As we all know, this past week there was a Nintendo Direct. That June summer Nintendo Direct finally happened to kind of fill the void of E3 in our hearts and minds, right, as game fans and as Nintendo fans. And it was a pretty good show. Obviously, with every Direct, people have different feelings. They love it, they hate it. They fall in the middle, which is definitely where I personally fell. But regardless of how you feel, there were a couple of really surprising, very big and exciting announcements. And as we know, most of them did revolve around Mario and the Mario franchise and the Mario universe. The big ones being Super Mario RPG Remake and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, as well as the new Princess Peach game and even an HD port of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, both of those coming next year. But of those games, all of which are very cool and very exciting for different reasons, the one that we're going to focus on today is naturally Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which in my opinion really is the biggest and most exciting of all of those announcements, mostly because it's technically a mainline game in the Mario franchise. It's the first brand new 2D Mario game in a long time because it's finally moving on from the new Super Mario Bros. Moniker. And I also think it's just going to be the biggest and most popular and best-selling and just highest profile game across the board. It's also the one I'm personally the most excited for out of all of those. And so I think you can make a case that Super Mario Bros. Wonder does represent the first new step in the Mario franchise since Mario Odyssey. Because, like I mentioned, I see it as a mainline entry and not a spin-off or a remake, you know? Luigi's Mansion games, they're spin-off games. This Princess Peach game is going to be technically a spin-off game. Mario RPG, both a spin-off and a remake of an old game. But any game that's in the 3D mainline Mario series or the 2D mainline Mario series, in my opinion, just counts as, like I said, a main entry that represents a new step in the Mario franchise, which is what makes it most exciting to me. And as I discussed in my kind of review reaction to the Nintendo Direct, I am incredibly stoked for this game. I'm not the biggest fan of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I loved the first one on the DS, but after that, I kind of just got uninterested in them. And so seeing what they're doing with Mario Wonder, even though it's a little bit more similar to those new Super Mario Bros. Games than I would have anticipated, it looks great. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've rewatched the trailer and considered the gameplay and the mechanics that are going to be very cool and fresh and fun, I realize it's going to be an incredible game, and I can't wait to play it. Now, as we know, in the wake of Mario Wonder's announcement came a lot of discussion and debate and back and forth amongst some folks out there on whether or not 2D or 3D Mario is better or better selling or whatnot. You know, I even had a tweet that had some people talking about that. I think people misinterpreted overall what I was getting at because there's no doubt that Mario Wonder is going to be a huge hit. But even outside of my one tweet, the larger conversation amongst other people has been exactly that, 2D, 3D, and what is just more impactful. And so for me, even though I'm a bigger fan of the 3D Mario games and the 3D Mario series, I still love 2D Mario, and I'm somebody who was weaned on the 8 and 16-bit era of Mario games, right? Because I am that old, as I love to remind you guys, I'm an old man, you know? So I grew up in the NES era and in the 16-bit era, playing Mario and Mario 2 and Super Mario World and all of these different things, you know? Even Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Because I had a Genesis before I had a Super Nintendo. So I love that era of 2D platformers and of 2D Mario. New Super Mario Bros. Kind of slowed that thing down for me a little bit, but then that's also around the time that 3D Mario picked up. Love Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, one of my favorite games of all time, and my favorite Mario game. Mario Odyssey, to me, on the Switch, very, very good game, but I think it's a little overrated just for my personal taste, and I certainly wouldn't consider it anywhere near the top of 3D Mario games. I think the Galaxy games and Mario 64 are just a lot better. But here's the thing when it comes down to the brass tacks of Super Mario Bros. Wonder being the newest 2D entry in the Mario franchise. As great as it's going to be, and as big of a game as it's going to be over the holiday this year on the Nintendo Switch, I think it also tells us a little bit about the future of the Mario franchise. Because to me, this tells us, and this is definitely assumption because we've been guessing about new hardware from Nintendo for years. Yes, this does relate to new hardware. I see the release of Super Mario Bros. Wonder as almost for sure the last new main Mario game to release on the Switch, at least to release exclusively on the Switch. I think, given the timing of everything around Mario Wonder, I think this is telling us that by the time we get the next 3D Mario game that we've all been waiting for years, whether it's Odyssey 2 or Galaxy 3 or something other new that they're creating from scratch, that game, as I've already kind of been theorizing for a few years, is going to be a release on the Nintendo Switch 2. My theory for quite a while, and you can track my conversations on my channel going back to probably 2020, my theory for a while has been that the next 3D Mario game, I wasn't even considering the 2D series at this time, that the next 3D Mario game would probably release in the launch year of the next Nintendo console. Obviously, releasing day and date as like a launch day title is technically a possibility as well. I mean, that's true for a lot of titles. But if we were to see the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2024, then I think that, yeah, the next Mario 3D game is probably going to be releasing on that. I like to think that Nintendo is looking to repeat the success that Mario Odyssey saw, releasing in the first calendar year of the Nintendo Switch. Remember, it wasn't a launch day game with the Switch, because the Switch came out in March 3rd, 2017, but it was in the first year. Mario Odyssey released in October of 2017, only, 7 months after the release of the Nintendo Switch, so in that first calendar year. I think there's a great chance Nintendo wants to repeat that success by having the next 3D Mario game, obviously not Mario Wonder, because again, the reveal of Mario Wonder shows us the next 2D entry and the next plan for the series on that front, but we're also wondering about a new 3D game, and so Mario Wonder tells us what's happening there on the current Nintendo Switch in 2023. 3D Mario game probably coming out in the next year to 2 years, and if we expect the Switch 2 in the next year or so, which I do, then that's why I think Mario Wonder tells us the next 3D Mario game will almost for sure be the next release on the Switch 2. Now, I know a lot of people will have different thoughts and feelings on this, if they like the idea, if they don't like the idea, if they believe the idea, or if they don't believe the idea. I mean, remember, I'm just speculating as a fan here. I don't know anything. I don't know if anyone out there really knows anything, right? So I know that folks are going to have mixed opinions on this concept. Personally, if it were to come true, let's say it plays out the way I'm speculating here, where Mario Wonder is the last new Mario game on the Switch, and then the next Mario game will be a 3D game that will release on the Nintendo Switch 2, next-gen console, whatever, and it's in the first year of the Switch 2. If those three things are all true and it happens that way, personally, I like that. I like the idea of knowing that in the first calendar year of my next-gen Nintendo console, if it's coming to us in the next 6 to 18 months or so, let's say, I get excited about that. Because just like with Metroid Prime 4, when I know that there's a chance new next-gen, more capable hardware is coming of any company, let alone Nintendo, my favorite company, then I would rather play the next entry in my favorite franchises on that new hardware. And in theory, I would love to know it was even built with that hardware in mind, so that we get a fresher, newer, more modern experience of a gaming franchise we love. And Metroid is my favorite gaming franchise of all time. Mario is in my top 5 favorite gaming franchises of all time because, like I said, I grew up playing Mario on the NES and on the Super NES. And so I personally have no problems sharing with you guys that I would prefer the next 3D Mario game to release on the Switch 2. I don't necessarily want the next 3D game on the Nintendo Switch, at least not exclusively. And if they do a cross-gen release, like a lot of us theorize they might do with Metroid Prime 4, that's great too. Take advantage of the install base. I honestly think that the first 2 or 3 years that the Switch 2 is on the market, whenever that happens, most games will be cross-gen with the current Switch for that time. Like I said, 2 or 3 years into the life of it. It's the same thing we're seeing happen like with the PS5, for example. And so I would like to see the next 3D Mario game be cross-gen in a way, but what I would hope is that the next-gen version of that game would be taking more advantage of the extra power afforded to it by the Switch 2, again, if any of this is even true and if it even plays out the way I'm speculating here. And so to kind of bring this back around and wrap this up on the main point here, we come back to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and why that game, I think, could represent a great Mario swan song title on the franchise. And again, I know Peach game and Mario RPG, technically releasing after that in November as well. Luigi's Mansion. But again, spin-offs, remakes, they're not new games, they're not mainline games. So Mario Wonder, representing the last mainline swan song title on the current Switch, is an exciting prospect because A, the game looks great, B, it's going to be really the tentpole title for their holiday this year, and C, I think it does represent everything I've been talking about in this video. The next mainline game will be 3D, and it's almost for sure going to be releasing on the Switch too, which again, just for my tastes, I'm not trying to speak for you guys, but for me, that gets me excited. I want a next-gen 3D Mario game, just like I want a next-gen Metroid Prime 4. It's just more exciting to me. I mean, at the end of the day, we know a game like a new 3D Mario game is going to be fantastic no matter the hardware. I'm not saying it would be a bad game suddenly if it released on the Switch, but do we want Mario Odyssey 2, for example, to release in 2024 or 2025, but be held back by, 10-year-old hardware, the Nintendo Switch hardware? We don't really want that. Doesn't it get more exciting to think about Switch 2 next-gen super powerful Nintendo tech running a Mario Odyssey 2 or a new 3D Mario title? I mean, to each their own, but to me, yeah, that becomes more exciting. Give me the Switch 2 power for my Mario games and my Metroid games and my Zelda games and the next Kirby game, and if we get F-Zero or Kid Icarus or Star Fox. We're at that phase where we can feel the Switch getting ready to transition to the new thing. Yes, the Switch is still releasing great games. Nintendo is killing it. But that doesn't mean that the next console isn't around the corner or even needed. And so I get excited about the idea. I think Mario Wonder has told us a lot about the future of Mario. I think that 3D game is coming out on the Switch 2 in the next maybe year to 2 years. To me, that's an exciting prospect. So I don't know. Tell me, do you guys like this idea or do you not? Let me know, and I'll see you next time on another video.